I can sit here right now and I'm going to say this very simply. I continue right now with my gray hairs, believe that hard work is one of the equations of success. I'm aware that I use the word hard work now instead of hustle because the word hustle has been demonized and positioned in a way that was never intended. My first book that I wrote, right there, the green one, Crush It. It's called Crush It. But in that book, verbatim, it says, if you are unhappy, then you should consider putting in extra hours to change the course of your life. But in that book that I wrote in 2008, it says, if you work 9 to 6 and you make $63,000 a year and you are very happy, then you've won life.
Yeah, exactly.
What has evolved is I am a byproduct of my thesis. I create creative that is contextual to the time. When I first hit the scene, will resonate. When I first hit the scene, we were in 2008, 9, and 10, and people didn't have jobs.
Yeah.
And I knew that the internet was going to win and that you could be an influencer and a creator and make money. So my point back then was, hey, you've got to use 6 p.m. to midnight if you are miserable, if you're suicidal, if you're living your life for the you're dead. You're working too much. So work harder in the short term to get you off the poison.
Right.
It's a job that's paying for your mortgage or your debt. That was the version that people, as a matter of fact, this is actually fascinating. The human that wrote the Medium article that said I was the poster child of hustle porn literally wrote me an apology message years ago saying I used you for my own advancement. Actually, you know what actually happened? You might find this interesting. I, on a podcast, went into deep double click on how I got positioned that way by some. A lot of people watching right now that are being like, I don't even know this. There was a period, to your point, where people thought I was the poster child of hustle porn. It was because there was a Medium article written that I was the poster child of hustle porn. In that article, he wrote 30 things that were not true. And it was devastating to me because if you look at my content from 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10,
it would not reflect that.
I didn't speak about kindness and patience is a reaction to where we are now. People are lacking kindness and lacking patience. Yeah. In 2008, there was more civility and there was less jealousy and envy. Yep. What there wasn't was people didn't have opportunities and there was a gold mine called the internet, so I was loud. Today, I speak about civility and patience because every 25-year-old wants to be a millionaire and famous, and people are nasty to each other for no reason.
Yeah.
So I will always be a vessel of what do I think the right
see in the culture around you. Absolutely. Yeah.
But like why I brought up Matt will tell you the way in the humanity that I treated people, who I was, like I've worked hard every minute. I work harder, by the way, today than I did back then.
Ever. Yeah.
So it's not an evolution of my wisdom of like, oh, wait a minute, I've never worked hard for the money or for the outside validation or for the vanity. I work hard because I adore what I do for a living and I produce a lot of content hoping I can motivate or unlock or inspire or debate on how one can get there, because I will tell you, there is nothing more true to what I'm about to say. It is, I'll even say it this way, it is unfortunate, even in the most progressive societies like France and the Scandinavian countries, it is shocking, that's a better word, because it's not unfortunate, it is shocking how much of a percentage of a human's life is at work. The amount of work that we work, for me, it's great because it's my great joy and my hobby. But in the scheme of things, if you take away sleeping and you realize how many hours you actually have in your life and what percentage goes to work, it's shocking. My argument is, if that's the case, please do something you like.
Something you love, something you care about.
At least palpable. It's got to be at least neutral. When it bleeds into toxic and negative and awful, I don't care how much you're going to not like driving a regular car instead of a fancy car. Or I don't care that you have to move out of a nicer neighborhood to a crappier neighborhood. I don't care if you have to sell your home and start renting.
Get happy.
You have to get happy. Yeah. What are we doing here?
That's right. You know, it's funny. It's making me reflect. So as the lexicon changes and words get weaponized, I have always described myself as a hustler. And I'm proud of that and fine with that. And I work hard on things that I give a shit about, right?
love
I
that.
think it's worth it for me to wake up early and work at night on something that I feel society needs, people need. Now, I also sleep 8 hours a night. I have a huge, robust social and family life. I hike 3 times a week. So being a hustler to me does not mean that I am
That's because you and I grew up in an era.
driving myself or my family, right? And so the weaponization of language.
That is all that happened with this.
Yeah.
Literally, the reason you and I view hustler as good is because of another sports thing. Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle, was world famous before he got caught up in betting, gambling issues. And he was someone, especially for boys, for boys 45 to, or baseball fans, it's not even just boys. If you're 45 to 55, the word hustle was such an admirable, good word.
It meant you were diligent and motivated and on it.
And so to your point, to me, hustle translates to work ethic and grit and tenacity and enjoyment. I continue to think it's a great word.
I do too.
Have I changed it to hard work to make a point so I don't lose some of the people who've demonized the word? Sure, but it doesn't take away the essence. I do not think that please do not say that you're going to be a billionaire, but then work 20 hours a day, a week, excuse me. Like, let's make this logical. Let's all understand it. But
effort and results out. Yeah, absolutely.
I was so cynical as an entrepreneur and someone who invested in startups that this is going to make some people smile or go, There was such an era when I was doing angel investing in Silicon Valley that, especially after Mark Zuckerberg hit big, the Harvard thing, that every kid that was at Harvard and Stanford, you basically by default thought they were capable when 99% weren't.
Yeah.
I actually recognized that and went the other way. I missed out
on some real talent. Yeah.
On some real investments because I demonized if you went to Penn.
I know what you mean.
I overcorrected too far the other way. And I had wished in hindsight that I could have just seen the pitch deck because the second Shear he walked in and said, I was out.
Yeah, right. I
didn't think they had the gusto, and I was the reverse. They came from wealthy parents, so they don't have the grit, and I made mistakes, and so the concept is profound.
Yeah, it really. Well, I've changed. I mean, I was with Boston Consulting Group. We did all our recruiting at Harvard and MIT and Stanford, and I finally reached 10 years into my career. I'm like, well, sure. Are there some quality, amazing people at those institutions? Of course. But also at University of Oklahoma, SDSU, and people who never went to college. And by the way, they have a criminal record.
It's just like anybody who's a human being knows it to be true.
But we don't operate that way always.
At scale, it's funny. Yeah. I'm sorry to bring this up again, but I just love the National Football League, even though I'm a little depressed. My Jets lost on Monday night. There was a long time. Let me use somebody I hate. Josh Allen, because he's the Buffalo Bills quarterback. He went to a very tiny school, and 25, 30 years earlier, 40 years earlier, he's going to have a very hard time getting drafted because he was from a small school. But then they started really focusing on the NFL Combine, the data, and they could see his strength and his speed. And yes, he didn't play the hardest competition, but they could run the math. The tangible things, and emotion was being left at the door. No longer was it that. And so, I think that is something that the business world should pick up on more. I think more businesses should be all in the way y'all do it, because I do think recruiting and HR and bosses and managers and CEOs, me included, we're human beings, and we are affected by some of those data points, which will throw us off from the mission.